Welcome to the Michael Berry Show podcast. Glad you found us. Tell a friend, won't you? That's how we've grown to be in one of the top podcasts in the land. So thank you for that. And a big thanks to our sponsor and our friend, Jim McInvale, Mattress Mac, Gallery Furniture. Mac gives back. We like the way he does business, and we like his commitment to the community. And we hope that you'll consider, when you're ready for your American-made solid wood furniture, galleryfurniture.com, because Mac gives back. Another story in Portland, Oregon, where the belief was that a man who'd been shot and killed was black, and Antifa was going to run amok. So the Portland Police Department sent out a social media statement that says, no, it was just a white guy. It is as if Antifa is running our cities and not our police departments. The rule of law has devolved into chaos. One of the men who has been covering this better than anyone else is Jack Posobiec. He's a senior editor for Human Events, and he's just published a book entitled The Antifa, Stories from Inside the Black Bloc. Jack, how concerned should we be with Antifa today?
Well, Mike, I appreciate you having me on, and I think it's very important that you bring up Portland, because what you just stated is what Antifa wants to use as a model across the country. Portland is their test bed. That is where they have had the most evolution and the most success in terms of their tactics and their political demands. You look at what Antifa has asked for in terms of the Portland government, and they've received every single one of their demands. It's a far cry, of course, from the administration and the government that used to say we never negotiate with terrorists, right?
Right.
Antifa has gotten the defunding of the police out there. They've gotten the resignation of the rapid response team, and they've even got the DA out there going and putting charges on police officers for breaking up Antifa riots.
You know, they couldn't do this without a compliant mayor, and the mayor in Portland is the example. Although Seattle, Minneapolis, Austin, we've seen others. How exactly does Antifa get away with this? What is their strategy? How do they implement that? Because they're more sophisticated than I think most people realize.
They really are, and in the book I outline this, the times where I've been able to infiltrate Antifa meetings, their trainings, find out their funding networks. I call it the cornucopia of corruption that goes into these guys. But when it comes to their political sophistication in terms of their propaganda, right, they are master propagandists. Even in the very name itself, Antifa, which was originally created to cover up their former name, the Red Front Group in Weimar, Germany, back in the 20s after it got banned. They play word games, they play mind games, and the media lapped it up without using a critical eye to go after what's actually going on. They'll say, well, look, we're just here fighting against oppression. We're just fighting against oppression. Yes, but you're attacking people in the streets, you're attacking people in their homes, or you're leaning at people in the mainstream media who will say, well, Antifa, yeah, they're bad, but they're not as bad as some of the other ones out there. No, we need to get back to all political violence is bad, because what you're doing is you're giving justification and a new moral framework to one group while focusing all your attention on another.
When you talk about their financing and who is behind them, what does that look like? Do they have straw men in between? Are there direct contributions? How much control do those puppeteers have? Or do they simply say, I love what you guys are doing. I'm investing in the chaos and disruption you're bringing to America. How tight is that? What are the communications there?
Well, so Antifa is a loose network of regional cells that's connected by ideology more than direct communications or payment networks. That being said, we do see payment processors such as PayPal, such as Venmo, such as Cash App, allowing these Antifa groups to fundraise on the internet, crowdsource with impunity. So that's your direct contributions. Then at the top, you do see high-level left-wing foundational wealth from Tides Foundation. You see this from Rockefeller Foundation. You see this from Ford Foundation, Open Society Foundation, sprinkling down towards groups like that call themselves with these sort of blasé sort of names like Alliance for Global Justice or Refuse Fascism. But what they're really doing is providing, on one hand, direct organization and support for these events, or on the other hand, you've got the National Guild of Lawyers that's going out and providing a legal arm to protect them every time that they get into trouble, which, of course, happens quite frequently. We see this most pronounced in Washington, D.C., where after Antifa attacked President Trump's inauguration in 2017, not only did the ACLU come in to defend them on their behalf, they actually secured a settlement for the Antifa members, called Disrupt J20 was that operation, for $1.6 million from the city of Washington, D.C.
Well, and we've seen it in Minneapolis, we've seen it in Austin, we've seen it in San Francisco. So where do they go from here? Because I think most folks think of Antifa as something you see on Fox News tearing up certain cities, but most Americans haven't seen it up close. How long before they expand? How long before they extend their influence?
Well, expansion and evolution has already taken place. If you look at the flow, and one thing I focused on in the intelligence community was tracking what we call TTP flow, or tactics, techniques, and procedures. That flow of Antifa tactics is now going where? It's going into your corporations, it's going into your institutions, it's going into your workplace, and it's going into your schools. If you are not on board with the program, right, you get unpersoned, you get attacked, you get doxxed, you get smeared, you have people opening up investigations on you. They are using the exact same tactics that Antifa has pioneered now at the local level. Unfortunately, you are seeing some parents fight back against this, but it is absolutely terrifying to see these Antifa tactics now being used in schools and workplaces.
Do you think that Antifa does such a good job recruiting disillusioned, disaffected young punks, the type of people who color their hair purple? Do you think they do that because of the excitement over the violence, because of being part of an organization, or appealing to their minds with these sort of very leftist opinions that have always captured the youth?
Well, it's a little bit of both, right? I mean, keep in mind, they're going for this disaffected youth, people who are having trouble finding traction in today's society. They've been pushed out by economic forces. They've been pushed down by many of these forces as well. And so they look for an outlet that's outside of the traditional norm of the American spectrum of politics. They're not interested in party politics. They're not interested in organizing, right? They want to lash out. They want to fight back. Antifa gives them an outlet to do that because, as I said before, the media, the courts, they are justifying this. They're basically saying with a wink and a nod that if you're a member of this group and you're fighting the other side, hey, we're not going to come down as hard as you as if you were on the right, if you were a conservative group. Then you're going to get the book thrown at you. We know, I mean, book of January 6th, you know, everybody's mom who went in, everybody's kid who went in. When it comes to Antifa, they say, oh, well, you know, that's just a misdemeanor, and we're going to drop those charges.
How sophisticated is the effort to track them by law enforcement? My guess is the Biden administration is not using the surveillance and intelligence gathering and sharing that they would. And what, you know, is Portland police going to be able to share with Austin or Minneapolis police? Not as likely as a federal agency would.
So you saw this ball start to get rolling under the Trump administration when AG Barr authorized the 56 joint terrorism task forces that every major city has to go around and share information to be in tracking these things. There are some people in the analytic fusion cells that I've spoken with of a few of these major cities in the terrorism task force that have gone in and are starting to track these guys. They're using Facebook tools. They're using social media to track them. The problem is they're not getting what we used to call in the military command direction. They're not getting that top-down level of, okay, we want you doing this. So, yeah, there might be some guy in the office somewhere who's got binders and files and spreadsheets all full of this stuff. But the problem is they're not using that to build cases. They're going after the blue-haired grandmas who are taking selfies in the Capitol.
Jack, hold with me for just a moment. We're talking to Jack Posobiec. The book is The Antifa, Stories from Inside the Black Bloc. We'll continue our conversation with him coming up. We're talking to Jack Posobiec. The book is The Antifa. It is out now. I encourage you to read it. Do I recall correctly you did a film by this name before? I know you released a project some time ago about that. Is this the follow-up to that?
Yeah, that's right. So I kind of did it backwards, right? Usually Hollywood does the book and then the movie. I did it backwards. I did the movie, and then this is the book coming out after.
Why do that? Because a book's so much more work, isn't it?
You know what it is, because I had a team in place in 2020 in that fall that said, we want to crunch this together, we want to get it out. And originally we were really only planning to do a documentary. And so we put that out. It's a feature-length film. It's at antifamovie.com. People can see it. But we generated so much research, and people were coming to me with so much research and so many more things. They said, Jack, you've got to go into this, you've got to go into that, you've got to do everything else. And so we did great views on that video, millions of views. YouTube tried to shut it down, but then we got it on BitChute and everything else. And then I said, you know what? I need to do something with this information. The best place to do it is to put it in a book where people can go and give it. And especially, I've had people telling me, they said, well, I got a friend or a family member, whoever it is. My dad says Antifa's not real because he heard that on the news. And I said, well, you know what? You could just hand him a book now and said, you know what? Fine. I'm not going to argue with you, but here's this book. Maybe you'll read it, right? And then you kind of put the ball in their court. So that's why the book kind of came out, because it really represents the last 5 years in a sense of my work, of my life, going through the different instances where I've either experienced infiltrating Antifa on the ground back in 2016 in Washington, D.C., up in 2020 in Seattle, different events all over the place, and then other tactics and information that we've been able to actually research from inside Antifa that's leaked out over the years, so we can give people an actual inside view of what's going on inside this very nefarious organization.
One of the things I noticed in the War of Terror, and it was so disturbing, was how often you would have a young person from the streets of Minneapolis who had been raised, the children of Somali immigrants, gone to good schools, and then go off and join terrorist activities, Jihadi John type individuals coming from New York or Houston, for that matter. There was one here. Who are these individuals as you paint a picture of the demographics of who joins Antifa? Are these from two-parent homes where mommy and daddy are just blown away? Are these people from broken homes? Were they part of an organization before? How old are they? How do they pay their bills? Who are these people?
Well, so the demographics, and we've looked at in terms of the arrest in the United States. There's even been some German studies on this, because Antifa was originally a German phenomenon that sort of migrated here to the United States. They are by and large white. They are by and large upper middle class to middle class. They're quite wealthy. They're quite affluent. Typically come from two-parent homes. The biggest issue, or I think the biggest commonality that we've seen, other than those backgrounds, is that they don't tend to have meaningful work experiences in their youth. What do I mean by that? Right? They're not coming from that working class background of knowing what it's like to work a shift, knowing what it's like to be in retail, food services, whatever it is when you're a kid, when you're a teenager coming up. And because they lack that sort of rite of passage going from adolescence into adulthood, it kind of leaves this sort of search. They're trying to find something to throw themselves into, a listfulness, if you will. And then so when they experience these organizations, they come into contact with them, such as Democrat Socialists for America, or they look at Antifa propaganda on the internet, they're then finding that this gives them meaning, it gives them purpose to, they actually believe that they're out there fighting the rise of the new fascism, and that there's Nazis behind every shadow, and that there's Russian agents, and only they can uncover them. And this is a great example of this is when you look at the January 6th cases, a lot of the charges that are being built by the FBI right now, a lot of the investigations, are being started and generated by Antifa cells. They call themselves insurrection hunters on the internet. And what they're doing is they're just doxing people many times without even the right information. They say, well, this person looks like this person, or this seems like that person, and then the FBI goes and builds a case based on that. Really, it's coming just from some Antifa. They think of themselves as targeting cells and use this type of propaganda, telling themselves that they're the ones that are secretly defending the United States of America against the forces of, the blue-haired grandma.
The book is called The Antifa, Stories from Inside the Black Bloc. To parents, and I hear this often, people will say, my kid's gone off to school at Portland State University, and, this kid's all whacked out. I can't talk to them because they start screaming and hollering. They're quoting AOC or Stalin or Che. What are some of the red flags that you say this has gone from harmless to potentially a real problem? Because nobody wants to wake up and see their kid's mugshot having busted out the windows or hurt some random stranger.
I mean, look, if what we've constantly seen with these kids or these individuals is that they are very active on social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. So if you are a parent out there, and I've got two little ones myself, not anywhere near old enough for this, but keep an eye on their social media. Look at the things they're interacting with. Look at the people they're interacting with. Don't just put it on pause. And if you are a conservative and you're sending somebody to Portland State, just know what's going to happen when they're there. They are going to be in an indoctrination center surrounded by this kind of stuff without any meaningful pushback. And the urge to want to conform, to get along, to go with the flow is going to be very, very high at one of these places.
Well, it's horrifying because it's child soldiers. It's what Che Guevara did. It's what a number of different. I mean, there were the Hitler Youth. Young people want to be part of a cause. It's how gangs recruit. They want to be part of something big. They enjoy the violence, but they're not tough enough to carry it out individually. But in this mob, they carry it about. It's as if we can't seem to learn our lessons of history, and we're doomed to repeat them. Despite the advice of George Santayana. Great work, as usual, Jack Posobiec, senior editor, Human Events. The book is called The Antifa. Buy it, read it, learn from it, and talk to your children. Stories from Inside the Black Bloc. Come back anytime, sir. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Very absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Michael Berry Show podcast. We appreciate it. You're always welcome to send us a message through the website, michaelberryshow.com. And thanks for supporting the folks who support this podcast and keep it free for you. Like our friend and supporter, Mattress Mac, galleryfurniture.com. Solid wood, American-made furniture, and what we love, Mac gives back. Every time we have a cause, every time we need help, every time a veteran needs help, he always steps up. galleryfurniture.com. Mac gives back.